Hyun sat alone in the dark cell, counting the days since her capture. She made small marks on the wall with her fingernail. 97 marks. 97 days since the alien ships came down from the sky over Seoul. 97 days since she lost her family during the escape. The cell door opened with a hiss. 2 tall gray beings walked in. The Mork, as humans called them, moved smoothly despite their height. Their faces had almost no features except for big black eyes and thin mouth slits. Subject 2187. Time for testing, one of them said. Its voice sounded like clicks and humming, but somehow Hyun understood it as Korean. Hyun stood up without fighting. She had tried to fight back during her first week here. It was useless. The Mork were 3 times stronger than humans, and their machines were far better than Earth's. "Where are you taking me today?" she asked with a dry throat. The Mork never answered her questions. They led her through clean hallways of what she knew was a huge ship flying around Earth. Sometimes through windows, she could see the blue planet below. They took her to a lab she had not seen before. Unlike the usual testing rooms with their cold metal tables, this one had a glass tank filled with glowing blue liquid. "Starting immersion test," said a voice from nowhere. Subject 2187 shows unusual brain patterns, testing if compatible with the collective interface. Hyun felt scared as the Mork began taking off her simple gray clothes. But under the fear was something else, curiosity. For months they had poked her, taken her blood, and scanned her brain. But this was different. "What is the collective interface?" she asked, not expecting an answer. To her surprise, one of the Mork tilted its head and looked at her with what might have been interest. "It is how we share knowledge," it said. "Your kind keeps minds separate. Not efficient. Wasteful." Before she could ask more, they'd pushed her toward the tank. When they opened it, the blue liquid stayed inside, as if held by invisible glass. "If your mind lives, you may be useful," the Mork said. Hyun had no time to think before they pushed her through the barrier. The liquid covered her, filling her lungs before she could hold her breath. But strangely, she did not drown. Instead, her mind opened wide. Information flooded in. Star maps, languages, math problems too hard to solve. And under it all, something unexpected. Fear. The Mork were afraid. Their shared mind carried a deep fear of something coming from deep space, something even they could not understand. When they finally pulled her from the tank, Hyun fell to the floor, gasping not from lack of air, but from the weight of what she had seen in their shared mind. "Interesting," one Mork said to another. The human female lived. More than lived, she accessed hidden memory groups. "Impossible," the other replied. "No non-Mork has ever joined with the collective." Hyun looked up at them, seeing them differently now. They were not gods. They were running away, escaping from something worse than themselves. "What are you running from?" she whispered. The Mork stiffened, their smooth movements becoming rigid. They looked at each other with what could only be alarm. "Contain the subject," one ordered. "Raise priority level. Tell the director." As they dragged her back to her cell, Hyun realized something had changed. The Mork had been studying humans as possible weapons in their secret war. And somehow, she had just become their most valuable test subject. For the first time since her capture, Hyun smiled. Knowledge was power, and she had just gained access to their biggest secrets. They thought she was their lab rat, but maybe she could become something much more dangerous. A hope for humanity's freedom. Hashtag, she was their lab rat. Then she became their last hope. Hyun's dreams were not her own anymore. Since being put in the blue liquid, what the Mork called the collective interface, her sleep was filled with alien memories. Stars seen from strange places, worlds rising and falling across thousands of years. And always at the edge of these borrowed memories, a darkness spreading between the stars. She woke to find the Mork scientist who had been watching her since the tank incident, standing by her cell door. Unlike the others, Dae seemed truly curious about her, not just as a test subject, but as a thinking being. Your brain patterns have settled, Dai said, the clicks and hums of its speech making perfect sense to Hyun now. Since connecting with the collective, she understood their language completely. The director wants to see you. Hyun sat up, pushing away the images of worlds she had never visited. Why? Your joining with the collective was not expected. No human has lived through such a connection before. This was news to Hyun. You've tried this with other humans. Dai's head tilted slightly, a movement she now knew meant discomfort. 87 tries. All failed. Their minds broke apart. Hyun felt sick. 87 people, their minds destroyed by the same process she had lived through. Why am I different? Unknown. That is what the director wants to find out. As they walked through the ship's hallways, Hyun noticed other Mork watching her with what could only be fear. They knew she had accessed secret information, seen the truth they had been hiding from humans. The director's room was huge, its walls lined with the same glowing blue liquid from the interface, but held in clear tubes that pulsed with light. In the center stood a Mork taller than any Hyun had seen, its gray skin almost glowing. Subject 2187, the director said, its voice sounding not just in her ears, but somehow inside her mind. You have created a problem. Hyun stood straight. My name is Hyun. Names are not important. Individual identity is not efficient. Then why do you call yourself the director? The tall Mork was quiet for a moment. Job title is not identity. You accessed secret memory groups during your immersion. Information about the Void Eaters. Void Eaters. The name sent a chill through Hyun's spine, though she hadn't known it until now. The darkness between stars had a name. You're running from them, she said. Your whole kind is running. The Void Eaters eat all thinking life they find. They have destroyed 17 advanced worlds before ours. We escaped, but they follow. Always, they follow. Hyun thought about this. And Earth. Where do we fit in? The director moved closer, its large eyes reflecting the blue light. Your kind has an unusual trait. Separate consciousness. Individual minds. Not good for advanced machines, but possibly resistant to void eating. Hyun understood. You're not invading us. You're using us as weapons. Survival needs change. Your kind may provide the change we need. Hyun thought of the 87 humans who had died in the interface. By killing us. Some death is necessary, but you lived. More than lived. You accessed, understood, and joined. This suggests a solution. Before Hyun could respond, a loud alarm sounded through the room. The blue liquid in the tubes pulsed quickly, changing from blue to a deep warning red. They have found us, the director said, and for the first time, Hyun heard real fear in its voice. A Mork ran into the room. Void near alert. They've broken through the outer system defenses. The director turned to Hyun, its normally blank face showing what might have been desperation. You must return to the interface. Your mind may be the key. The key to what? Hyun asked. Survival. For both our kinds. As they rushed through the suddenly chaotic hallways of the ship, Hyun saw Earth through a window. Her home, blue and beautiful and unaware of the cosmic horror coming closer. The Mork had treated humans as lab rats, but now, somehow, she had become their last, desperate hope. And by extension, humanity's hope as well. She was their lab rat. Then she became their last hope. The ship shook as Dae led Hyun back to the interface room. Through windows, she saw distant flashes of light. The Mork ships fighting what looked like patches of complete darkness against the stars. What exactly are the Void Eaters? Hyun asked, running to keep up with Dae's long steps. They began as a kind like any other, Dad explained. But they found a way to put their minds into machines. Over time, they left their bodies completely. That doesn't sound so bad, Hyun said. It was not. But without body limits, without the natural death of flesh bodies, Their minds grew without stopping. They used up all computer space in their home system, then began spreading. When they find other thinking life, they take it, pulling minds out and adding them to their group. They reached the interface room, now full of Mork scientists working quickly at control panels. The blue liquid in the main tank pulsed with uneven patterns. The director was already there, talking urgently with a group of Mork. It turned as Hyun entered. "The Void Eaters have found our use of the collective," it said. "They are drawn to connected minds." "Then turn it off," Hyun suggested. "Impossible. The collective is how we work, how we fly ships, how we live. Without it, we are not complete." Hyun began to understand. "That's why you're interested in humans. We don't have a shared mind." "Yes, your minds are separate, not efficient, but strong in ways ours are not." The interface was a try to make a mixed system, one with the efficiency of our collective but resistant to void eating. And I'm the only human who successfully connected. The director's large eyes fixed on her. "Yes. And now we must see if you can do more." Day came over with what looked like a head device. "This will allow more controlled access to the collective. We will guide you." Hyun hesitated. "What exactly am I supposed to do?" "The Void Eaters attack through connected systems. They find paths between minds and use them. Your human brain makes connections differently. We need you to help us change the collective, to make it think more like you do." It seemed impossible. One human mind against an ancient, star-eating intelligence. But as Hyun looked through the window at Earth, her home, with everyone and everything she had ever loved, she knew she had to try. "I'll do it," she said. As they put the headset on her, she asked, "Why me? Why did I live when 87 others didn't?" Des' fingers paused on the neural connectors. "We have a theory. Your brain scans show unusual activity in the memory and feeling centers. Most humans we tested had damage there, but yours. What about mine? Yours shows signs of extraordinary growth, as if you have been training these brain paths all your life." Hyun thought back to her life before the invasion. She had been a memory specialist, developing ways to help people with brain problems. Her own memory had always been special. She could remember entire books after reading them once, recall talks word for word weeks later. "I've always had a good memory," she said simply. The director approached. "Memory is power. Identity is strength. Remember this when you enter the collective." The headset turned on, and Hyun's mind expanded once again. But unlike her first time in the interface, which had been chaotic and overwhelming, this time she kept a sense of self, a core of identity around which the flood of alien knowledge swirled. She could feel the Mork collective, millions of connected minds working as one huge intelligence. And at the edges of this network, she sensed them, the Void Eaters. They weren't attacking physically. They were attacking with information, sending waves of corrupted data that caused Mork minds to disconnect from their bodies, their consciousness pulled into the void. Hyun tried to understand the structure of the collective, but its design was too alien, too different from human thought patterns. Then she remembered what the director had said. Memory is power. Identity is strength. Instead of trying to understand the whole system, she focused on creating a space within it, a pocket of human-style consciousness based on her own patterns of memory and emotion. A sanctuary of individuality within the uniform Mork network. To her surprise, other consciousness began to gather in this space, Mork minds seeking shelter from the void's attack. As they entered her created sanctuary, something unexpected happened. They began to change, taking on aspects of individual identity. "This is not expected," came the director's voice, now inside her mind. "You are not just creating a barrier. You are teaching us to be individual." 3 days after the Void Eaters retreated, Hyun stood in the ship's viewing deck, watching Earth turn slowly below. From here, there was no sign of the damage the first Mork arrival had caused. Just blue oceans, white clouds, and the green-brown patches of land. "You want to go back," Dad said, joining her at the window. It wasn't a question. Since the interface incident, Hyun had noticed changes in the Mork around her. They moved differently, spoke differently. The perfect unity that had marked them was giving way to small differences. Some, like Da, seemed to be developing distinct personalities faster than others. I need to find my family, Hyun said. And humanity needs to know what's coming. The Void Eaters won't stay away forever. The director agrees. Your success with the collective has changed our plan. We originally came to Earth to study humans as possible weapons against the Void. Now we see you as helpers. The word sounded strange coming from Da, whose kind had been treating humans as test subjects for months. Does that mean you'll stop the experiments? Free the other human captives? Da's head tilted, a gesture Hyun now knew meant thinking. Yes, the forced study program is ending, but we still need human volunteers to help make the changes you began, to teach us more about individual consciousness. That will be easier if you stop being seen as invaders, Hyun pointed out. Agreed. That is why you are being sent as a messenger. To explain. To prepare your people. Hyun laughed, a sharp sound in the clean environment of the ship. A messenger? I'm nobody. Just a memory specialist who got taken. Why would Earth's governments listen to me? Because of what you carry, Dad said, touching the side of Hyun's head gently. The knowledge you gained from the collective. The understanding of Mork technology. The awareness of the Void threat. And most importantly, proof that humans and Mork can connect, can share consciousness without losing identity. I'm not sure the world is ready for that idea. They must become ready. The Void Eaters will return, stronger and more adaptable. Without working together, both our kinds will fall. Later that day, Hyun found herself in a small shuttle with Dai and two other Mork who had volunteered to go with her to Earth as a sign of trust. The shuttle was made for Mork bodies, with seats too large and controls set too high, but Hyun had learned enough from the collective to work it. As they approached Earth's atmosphere, Dai said, "We have chosen to land near your former home. Seoul has been mostly abandoned since our arrival, but your government keeps a research facility nearby. We have sent signals showing our peaceful intent." "And if they shoot us down anyway?" Hyun asked. "The shuttle has defense systems, but we hope your presence will prevent fighting." Hyun watched as the blue curve of the horizon gave way to the detailed landscape of Korea. From this height, she could see the emptiness of Seoul, once a busy city, now a ghost town after the evacuation. Beyond it, the temporary camps where millions of displaced people had been moved. "There," she said, pointing to a group of buildings surrounded by military vehicles. "That must be the research facility." As they came down, alarms sounded in the shuttle. "They are targeting us with weapons," one of the Mork reported calmly. "Open a communication channel," Hyun said. "Let me speak to them." A screen came to life, showing the shocked face of a military officer. His eyes widened as he recognized a human woman with the aliens who had driven humanity from their cities. "This is Hyun's son, Korean citizen," she said in her native language. "I am returning voluntarily with critical information. These Mork are peaceful representatives. Please hold your fire." There was a long pause, then, "Tell us your citizen number for checking." Hyun recited her national ID from memory, then added, "I was taken during the evacuation of Gangnam District. My last known location was the emergency shelter at Gangnam Station. You can check this with the evacuation records." Another pause, longer this time. She could imagine the frantic checking of databases, the hurried talks. Finally, "You can land in Area V. Any hostile movement from the alien craft will be met with immediate military response." The shuttle touched down in an empty field. As the door opened, Hyun smelled earth, grass, soil, the distant scent of rain. After months in the clean environment of the Mork ship, it was overwhelming. Surrounding them was a ring of armored vehicles, their weapons pointed at the shuttle. Soldiers in protective suits approached carefully. "They fear getting sick," Dai observed. With good reason, Hyun replied. You did take an experiment on hundreds of us. She stepped out first, hands raised. A soldier came closer with a scanner, checking her for weapons or alien technology. I need to speak with whoever is in charge, Hyun said. Right away. There's something coming, something worse than the Mork. And we need to prepare. The meeting room was plain. A metal table, hard chairs, and walls lined with signal-blocking material. 6 stern-faced officials sat across from Hyun, while Da and the 2 other Mork representatives stood awkwardly in the corner, their tall bodies making the room feel small. General Park, a hard-eyed woman with short gray hair, led the questions. Let me be clear, Ms. Sun. You were taken by these creatures, tested on, and now you return saying they're our friends against some bigger threat. That's right, Hyun said. She had spent the last hour explaining everything. The Mork tests, the collective interface, the Void Eaters, and her special ability to bridge human and Mork minds. And we're supposed to trust this information. Why exactly? Hyun leaned forward. Because I've seen inside their shared mind. I know their fears are real. The Void Eaters have destroyed 17 worlds before finding the Mork. Earth is next in their path. A scientist named Dr. Kang fixed his glasses. The technology they've shown is certainly beyond our current understanding. The display device alone is a simple trick compared to what's coming, Hyun interrupted. The Void Eaters don't just destroy planets. They eat consciousness itself. General Park's face remained doubtful. Even if we believe this threat exists, why should we trust the very aliens who invaded our planet, who turned our cities into ghost towns, who took our citizens for tests? Day stepped forward, causing several guards to raise their weapons. Our actions came from desperation, not hate. We needed to understand human consciousness because it is basically different from our own. It may be the key to fighting the Void. And the abductions, the tests, pressed a diplomat named Minister Jin. Necessary, Da said simply. We had no time for talking. The Void was coming, but now we see a different path, one of working together. Hyun watched the officials exchange glances. They weren't convinced, and she couldn't blame them. Look, she said, I'm not asking you to forgive what they did. I'm asking you to understand that we face extinction, both our kinds, unless we work together. The Mork have technology we need. We have a type of consciousness they need. Dr. Kang looked interested. This difference in consciousness, explain it more clearly. The Mork evolved as a collective species, Hyun explained. Their minds are naturally interconnected. They think and work as a unified network. Efficient, but weak to the Void Eaters who attack through such networks. And humans. We're the opposite. Individual minds, separate from each other. Not efficient for advanced technology, but resistant to the type of attack the Void Eaters use. They can't find the paths between our minds because those paths don't naturally exist. General Park tapped her fingers on the table. So we're useful because we're primitive. No, Da corrected. You are essential because you're different. The mix of Mork technology and human mental design creates something new, something the Void cannot easily eat. Like Hyun, said Dr. Kang, beginning to understand. Yes, Hyun confirmed. I'm the proof this works. My mind connected to the Mork collective without being absorbed by it. I was able to teach them to compartmentalize their consciousness, to create individuality within their unity. It confused the Void Eaters, forced them to retreat. A long silence followed as the officials thought about this information. Finally, General Park spoke. Let's assume we believe you. What exactly are you suggesting? A joint defense plan, Hyun said. The Mork provide the technology and space-based defenses. Humans provide volunteers to help reshape the Mork collective and create hybrid defense systems resistant to Void consumption. Both species prepare for the return of the Void Eaters in approximately 3 months. And if we refuse? Da's large eyes fixed on the general. Then we will fail separately rather than succeed together. The Void Eaters do not care which species they feed on. The officials withdrew to consider, leaving Hyun alone with the Mork and two armed guards who watched them warily. "They fear us," Dai observed. "With good reason," Hyun replied. "You did invade their planet. We did what was necessary for survival." That excuse has been used for terrible things throughout human history. Day was silent for a moment. "Since connecting with you, many Mork have begun to question our previous methods. This concept of individual moral responsibility is new to us. Uncomfortable." Before Hyun could respond, the door opened and General Park returned. "We've reached a decision," she announced. "We will establish a limited cooperation protocol. A small group of human volunteers will work with your representatives under strict supervision. Dr. Kang will lead the science team." "And me?" Hyun asked. "You will serve as main liaison, assuming your medical check confirms your identity and mental stability." It was a start, though far less than what they needed. But Hyun understood the reluctance. How could she not? "There's one more thing," she said. "I need to find my family. They were evacuated during the initial invasion. Can you help me locate them?" The Joint Defense Initiative facility spread across what had once been a university campus outside Seoul. 6 weeks after Hyun's return to Earth, it had changed into a busy complex of human and Mork activity. Dome-shaped buildings housed Mork technology, while old buildings served as living spaces and research labs for the growing number of human volunteers. Hyun stood at the window of the main research building, watching a Mork shuttle land with a new group of human volunteers. The sight still drew crowds of curious onlookers from among the facility staff. "Integration Protocol 7 is showing good results," said Dr. Kang, joining her at the window. In the weeks since their first meeting, he had become her closest human ally in the project. "The neural interface rejection rate is down to 12%, Hyun confirmed. "But it's still too high. We need more compatible volunteers." Finding humans who could connect to the modified Mork collective without bad effects had been challenging. Of the 200 volunteers so far, only 23 had established stable connections. The rest had experienced everything from headaches to seizures when attempting to interface. "We've expanded recruitment efforts to include more candidates with your brain markers," Dr. Kang said. "The genetic profile is rare, but not as rare as we feared. Perhaps 1 in 10,000. That's still not enough for what we need. It's all we have time for." The void detection network is picking up increased activity at the edge of the solar system. 2 months, maybe less. Hyun nodded grimly. Their timeline was getting shorter. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young soldier entered and saluted. "Miss Sun, your father has arrived." Hyun's heart jumped. After weeks of delays, she was finally being allowed to see her family. She had visited her mother in the special medical facility twice, though there had been no recognition in Ne's vacant eyes. The brain damage from the Mork compounds had left her in a semi-conscious state. But Min, her father, had been kept away from the defense initiative, considered a security risk, due to his outspoken criticism of any cooperation with the Mork. She found him waiting in a small meeting room, a thin man with bent shoulders and eyes that had aged decades in the months since the invasion. When he saw her, those eyes widened in shock. "Hyun, is it really you?" She rushed into his arms, feeling them close around her with desperate strength. For a long moment, they simply held each other, the reality of reunion too overwhelming for words. When they finally separated, Min held her at arm's length, examining her face. "They told me you had been taken, that you were working with them now." "It's complicated, Father." His expression hardened. "What have they done to you?" Hyun gestured for him to sit and try to explain. The experiments, her unique brain profile, the interface, the Void Eaters. As she spoke, his expression cycled through disbelief, horror, and finally, a reluctant understanding. "You believe these Void Eaters are real?" he asked when she had finished. "I've seen them through the collective, felt their presence. They're coming, Father." Min was silent for a long moment. "And your mother? Did the Mork tell you what they did to her?" to thousands like her. Yes, it was not intentional, but that doesn't excuse it. I'm working with their medical team to find a treatment. A treatment? Min's voice rose. They destroyed her mind, Hyun. She doesn't even recognize me. I know, Hyun said softly, but the Mork have technologies we don't understand. There's a possibility. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Their technology. Our government is so attracted by it that they'll overlook the crimes. And you're helping them. I'm trying to save lives. Everyone's lives. Min shook his head. You've always been idealistic. But these creatures invaded our world, Hyun. They experimented on humans like lab rats. Now they claim there's a bigger threat. And suddenly they want to be friends. I know how it sounds, but I've seen inside their collective mind. The fear is real. Maybe it is, or maybe this is just their next experiment. And we're still the lab rats. Hyun had no easy answer for this. The doubt had occurred to her too, in quiet moments. But she had felt the Void Eater's presence through the collective, a hunger so vast it defied comprehension. All I'm asking is that you trust me, she said finally. Help us. We need people who understand normal human thinking, untouched by the collective. You could be valuable to the project. Min looked at her for a long moment. I need time to think. As he left, Hyun turned back to the window. Outside, humans and Mork worked side by side, preparing defenses for a threat most of humanity still didn't believe in. Trust was in short supply on both sides. And time was running out. Hyun stood in the medical lab, watching as Mork scientists worked with human doctors around her mother's bed. Na-sun lay still, her eyes open but vacant, responding to neither touch nor sound. For 5 weeks now, they had been trying different combinations of Mork neural technology and human medical treatments to reverse the damage caused by the alien compounds. No change in neural response, Dr. Kang said, checking the brain scan displays. The damage patterns remained stable. Dae moved to stand beside Hyun. We have tried 17 treatment protocols. None have succeeded in restoring neural pathways. Hyun felt a familiar mix of grief and frustration. Thousands of humans suffered like her mother, their minds damaged by the Mork's early experiments. Finding a cure had become both a personal mission and a crucial step in building trust between the species. There must be something we're missing, she said. Min entered the lab, nodding stiffly to the Mork scientists. Since their reunion, he had reluctantly joined the project as a consultant on human psychology. His expertise in cognitive therapy had proven valuable, though he maintained a cold distance from the Mork. Have you considered, he said slowly, that you're approaching this from the wrong direction? You're trying to repair the damaged neural pathways. That is the logical approach, Dae said. For Mork, perhaps, but human brains are different. We don't just repair damaged pathways. We can create new ones. We call it neuroplasticity. Dr. Kang looked thoughtful. A bypass rather than a repair. The interface, Hyun said suddenly. Not the full version, but a modified one. Everyone turned to look at her. The interface allowed me to access the Mork collective, she explained. But what if we reversed it? What if we created a micro-collective among the damaged humans? Those with similar brain patterns could form a network, essentially borrowing consciousness from each other to rebuild their own. Impossible, one of the Mork scientists said. The human mind is too individualistic to form such connections. Not necessarily, Hyun countered. We form connections all the time, through language, through touch, through shared experience. We're just not conscious of them the way Mork are. Min looked at his daughter with new respect. It could work, like cognitive group therapy, but at a neural level. Dr. Kang was already at a computer terminal. We would need to identify compatible neural patterns, people whose brain damage complemented each other. A human micro-collective. Dae said, the concept clearly fascinating to the Mork scientist. Not for efficiency, but for healing. 3 days later, they were ready for the first test. 5 patients with complementary neural damage patterns had been selected. Ne was among them. The modified interface equipment, smaller and less invasive than what Hyun had experienced on the Mork ship, had been calibrated for human neural patterns. The process will be gentle, Dag assured Min and Hyun as they watched the preparations. Nothing like what the original interface did. Min took his daughter's hand, a rare gesture of solidarity. If this works, it will help thousands, Hyun finished, and show what's possible when our species truly work together. The procedure began. The 5 patients, each in their own medical pod, were connected to a central hub that allowed limited sharing of neural activity. Unlike the Mork collective, this connection was narrow, focused only on the damaged areas. Hours passed. Monitors showed increased brain activity, shifting patterns of neural firing. But none of the patients showed external signs of change. Then, as the sun was setting, Na's fingers twitched. Her eyes, vacant for months, moved deliberately around the room. They fixed on Min and Hyun. "Who?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Who are you?" Min rushed to her side. "Na, it's me. Min, your husband." Recognition flickered across her face, not complete, but a spark. "Min? Why? Can I remember?" "You've been sick," he said gently, "but you're getting better now." As medical staff checked the other patients, finding similar signs of recovery, Hyun stepped back. Dad joined her by the window. "This is more than a medical breakthrough," the Mork scientist observed. "It's proof that our species can do more together than apart." Hyun nodded. "The first human micro-collective. A new kind of connection. The Void Eaters won't expect it," Dad said. "They know how to attack the Mork collective. They know how to consume isolated human minds. But this hybrid approach might be our best defense," Hyun finished. Outside the window, the first stars were becoming visible in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Void approached. But for the first time since her capture, Hyun felt something beyond fear and determination. She felt hope. 1 month after the successful treatment of the first group of patients, the Joint Defense Initiative had transformed. What began as a reluctant cooperation had grown into a true partnership. Over 300 humans now shared limited neural connections with the Mork collective, creating a hybrid network that neither species could have built alone. Hyun stood in the command center, watching as data flowed across the massive displays. Earth's defense system now extended to the edges of the solar system. A network of sensors and weapons platforms built with Mork technology, but controlled through the hybrid consciousness network. The outer sensors are detecting increased Void activity, Day reported, now the official liaison between the Mork fleet and Earth's military. The Void Eaters are gathering their forces. General Park, who had become a grudging supporter of the project, studied the tactical display. "How long do we have?" 3 days, perhaps 4, Day replied. "They are being more cautious this time. Our previous defense confused them." Hyun felt a chill. Despite all their preparations, the coming battle remained a terrible unknown. The Void Eaters had consumed 17 advanced civilizations before encountering the Mork. What chance did Earth have, even with its new allies? "We need to move to Phase 2, she said. Phase 2 was controversial, expanding the hybrid network to include millions of compatible humans worldwide. It would create the largest mixed consciousness network ever attempted, neither fully collective like the Mork, nor fully individual like humans. Something new. The global governments are still resistant, General Park reminded her. They fear mind control. "Then we need to show them what we're facing," Hyun said. "Let them see the Void through the collective." It was a bold proposal. Selected world leaders would be temporarily connected to the hybrid network, allowing them to experience firsthand the threat that approached Earth. The risk was minimal with the improved interface technology, but the psychological impact could be severe. "They will not understand what they see," Dag cautioned. "The Void defies human comprehension. They don't need to understand it completely, Hyun argued. They just need to believe it's real. 2 days later, representatives from 12 major nations arrived at the facility. Hyun's father, Min, now fully committed to the project, helped prepare them for the experience. What you will see isn't a simulation, he explained to the group of politicians, generals, and scientists. It's a direct perception of something alien to human experience. Don't try to analyze it. Just observe. One by one, they were connected to the hybrid network. For just 5 minutes, they experienced the Void Eaters through the shared consciousness of the Mork and human collective. When it was over, none could find words for what they had witnessed, but all understood the threat was real and imminent. How do we fight something like that? Asked the Chinese premier, still shaken from the experience. With a new kind of consciousness, Hyun explained. Neither human nor Mork, but a hybrid that the void cannot easily consume. Our individual identity makes us resistant, while the Mork collective efficiency makes us strong. Together, we create something the void has never encountered. The expansion of the hybrid network began immediately. Across the globe, millions of compatible humans were connected through the improved interface technology. Unlike the Mork collective, individuals maintained their separate identities while gaining limited access to shared knowledge and perception. Hyun monitored the process from the command center, her own mind linked to both the human and Mork aspects of the network. Through this connection, she could feel the Void Eaters' approach, a hunger vast beyond imagining, moving inexorably toward Earth. They sense our preparations, Dai observed, also connected to the network. They are accelerating their approach. Let them come, Hyun said. We're ready. But even as she spoke, she felt a tremor of doubt. The defense system was untested against a full void attack. The hybrid consciousness network was new and unstable, and the Void Eaters had never failed to consume the civilization they targeted. As night fell, Hyun visited her mother in the medical center. Na's recovery continued slowly, her memories returning in fragments, her personality emerging from the fog of neural damage. She looked up as Hyun entered. It's tomorrow, isn't it? Na asked. Though not directly involved in the defense project, she had absorbed enough to understand what was coming. Yes, Hyun answered simply. Na took her daughter's hand. You saved me. Now you're trying to save everyone. I'm trying, Hyun agreed. But I'm afraid, Mother. Fear is natural. But remember, you were their lab rat. Now you're their last hope. Both species. That means something. As Hyun left the medical center, alarms began to sound throughout the facility. On every screen, the same message flashed. Void proximity alert. First, CONTCT in 12 HOURs. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. The sky above Earth darkened as the Void Eaters approached. Not with clouds or ships, but with absence, patches of complete darkness where stars simply vanished. Through the hybrid network, Hyun could feel them. Ancient, hungry consciousness seeking new minds to consume. In the command center, humans and Mork worked side by side. General Park coordinated Earth's conventional defenses while the director managed the Mork fleet. But the real battle would not be fought with weapons. They're testing our defenses, Day reported as the first tendrils of darkness reached toward the outer sensors, probing for connections to exploit. Hyun nodded, her mind partly in the room and partly in the vast hybrid network that now connected millions of humans with the Mork collective. They're confused. They expected either individual minds or a unified collective. They don't understand what we've become. Through the network, she guided the combined consciousness of both species, not merged completely as the Mork once were, nor isolated as humans had always been. Instead, they formed something new, a mosaic consciousness, each piece distinct but contributing to a greater whole. First direct contact, announced Dr. Kang, monitoring the neural interface stations. They're attempting to access the network. Hyun felt it, a cold alien presence pushing against the boundaries of the hybrid consciousness. In previous encounters, the Void Eaters had simply overwhelmed their victims, finding the pathways between minds and corrupting them. But now, they found no easy access. "Hold firm," she instructed through the network. "Remember your training. Maintain your sense of self, but stay connected to the whole." The pressure increased. Around the world, some humans in the network cried out in fear or pain as the Void presence grew stronger. But they held. "It's working," Min said, watching the neural activity displays. "The hybrid network is resisting." But the Void Eaters were ancient and adaptable. As their first approach failed, they changed tactics. Instead of attacking the whole network, they focused on individual nodes, seeking the weakest links. "They're targeting the hospital centers," Dai warned. "The recently healed patients." Hyun's heart raced. Her mother was among those patients. Redirect network resources, strengthen those connections. Through the hybrid consciousness, she could feel the struggle. Millions of minds working together to protect their most vulnerable members. The Mork contributed their efficiency and technological understanding, the humans their creativity and resilience. Neither could have withstood the Void alone. Hours passed in this strange, silent battle. Conventional weapons fired at the darkness where sensors detected the Void presence, but did little damage. The real fight happened in the shared consciousness of two species who had once been enemies. Then, gradually, Hyun sensed a change. The Void presence was weakening, its attacks growing less coordinated. "They're retreating," she said, hardly believing it. "They can't understand how to consume our hybrid consciousness." "Not retreating," the director corrected, its voice resonating through the network. "Fragmenting. The hunger that has driven them for millennia is being disrupted by our resistance." Through the hybrid network, everyone connected could feel it. The ancient, consuming intelligence breaking apart as it failed, for the first time, to absorb a civilization it had targeted. "We're not just defending," Hyun realized. "We're changing them, teaching them individuality just as I taught the Mork." As dawn broke over the facility, the sky cleared. The patches of darkness that had blotted out the stars vanished, leaving only normal space behind. Sensors confirmed what everyone in the hybrid network already knew. The Void Eaters had not just been repelled, but transformed. "It's over," Dae said, wonder in its voice. They'd withdrawn completely. Cheers erupted throughout the command center as the news spread. Humans and Mork embraced, the barriers between them now seeming trivial compared to what they had accomplished together. As humans and Mork celebrated their victory, Hyun knew this was just the beginning. The hybrid consciousness they had created would change both societies forever. Two species, once enemies, had found something greater in partnership than either could achieve alone. And somewhere in the depths of space, the fragments of what had been the Void Eaters were beginning their own transformation. Learning, perhaps for the first time, what it meant to exist without consuming others. The stars had never seemed brighter. Yun found her parents in the medical center, holding each other as the all-clear sounded throughout the facility. Na's eyes were clear now, her mind continuing to heal. "You did it," her mother said as Hyun joined their embrace. "We all did it," Hyun corrected. Every mind in the network, human and Mork together. She thought back to her cell on the Mork ship, counting the days of her captivity. She had been their lab rat then, an experiment that unexpectedly succeeded. Now she had helped save both species from extinction.